Check one, two, three. Hey everybody, it's Michael Helms, also known as Michael the Sound Guy, and this is the Location Sound Podcast. You know, each episode we talk with location sound mixers, boom ops, and other industry pros about the various aspects of recording sound on location, whether it's for feature and independent films, TV commercials, interviews, any time where dialogue from actors is recorded. I started my career in the recording studios in New York City with some of the big artists back in the day, and later on projects for networks like HBO, Sci-Fi Channel, and the Cartoon Network. As time went by, I got out of the studio and began working in production sound. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, thanks for joining us. All right, my guest today is based out of Vancouver, British Columbia. He's a production sound mixer and a Vancouver Film School instructor, and he also has a popular YouTube channel about production sound. So please welcome Rodolfo Piedras.
Thank you so much for having me. How's it going?
All right. Now, Rodolfo, if you've heard the show before, we always like to start off by asking, when you're mixing on set, what's in your audio kit? So just tell us about your mics, your mixer, your power distribution, and everything in between.
I just recently upgraded my kit, but the bag and the recorder I used for the longest time was the Sound Devices 633. I used that guy for about 4 years until recently where I just upgraded to the 688. I have 2 kits running it right now. So in my bag, I have a couple of SRCs, 2 LTs. For power distribution, I'm running a BDS, the one with the USB connection. For batteries, I have the MP1, the blue ones. For transmitters, I got pretty much one of each. I got the SMWBs from Electrosonics, SMVs, SMQVs, and LMBs. In that same bag setup, I have a Comtech Option 7 transmitter that I use on set with the receivers, the Comtech receivers. I forgot the name, the M2 something is the model.
Okay, 216?
216, I think. Yeah, that's right. And for my boom up for communications for IFBs, I'm rocking right now the Sennheisers, the G4s, the IEMs. And I really like those. Before those, I was using an all Electrosonics single receiver with my LMBs. I would just hop it on the opposites. I will get the transmitter out of my bag, and the receiver will be my boom up. We use that, but it was kind of weird. For lavs, I like the Sankens, the COS 11s, but I'm in love with the DPAs, the 4060s. I have a couple of the DPA 4060s. The only issue I have with those mics is that they're extremely fragile. They're rugged, but if you're putting it in and out of people and several setups, I have snapped 2 of them so far. But they sound great though. If I could, I would just rock DPAs, but I can't keep doing L&Ds on every show, you know? And the producers are going to get mad at me. But the sound quality of the DPAs are by far superior than the Sankens, in my opinion.
So what actually breaks on the mic itself?
For some reason, the inside of the cable, something snaps inside, so you can hear it crackle when you move it. And when it happens at the end, when the connector is an easy fix, right? They just have to solder it again. But when it happens at the capsule, it's a little bit tricky. I've tried to repair a couple, and they work for a little bit, and they one of them actually completely snapped. This actor was wearing an ankle strap, and then he forgot he was wearing an ankle strap, and then he just janked the whole thing, and the actual cable snapped. That was not a fun day. But back to my equipment. So I'm also starting to jump into a cart setup now. So in my cart, I have the Sound Devices 688. I have a Venue 1 receiver with 6 modules running at a time right now. I have a Comtech base station. I also have a Sennheiser transmitter, a stereo transmitter for my IEM, so I can communicate with my boom up, and a sound assistant if I get one. I'm running the CL12 alongside the 688, and that's all I got there. For boom microphones, I have the MKH50 the Sheps with the MK41 capsule, the hyper one. I think it's a hyper one. It should be a hyper one. Otherwise, I'm gonna sound like an idiot right now. For shotguns, I got the Sanken CS3E, and the guys at Dady, they just sent me a S mic too, and I've been testing it out, and it's a pretty heavy, rugged microphone. Like you could assault somebody with that microphone. It's heavy, man. I don't know if you have tested out that mic, but it's a weapon. It's a weapon, that microphone. It's heavy.
All right. Well, how do you power your kit usually?
In the bag, I'm using the BDS with the MP1s, and in my cart, I have a PSC triple play. So I'm usually running AC power. So when I show up to set, I will get power from the electrics department. And when I have to go mobile, I'll bring the bag or I'll run another MP battery in the triple play, and it's powering everything up. And it gives me about 30 minutes of power. I need to find a bigger battery for my cart, but so far that's what I'm using for it.
What kind of headphones do you like to use?
When it comes to headphones, I always find it that it depends on the environment you're recording. Sometimes you go outside on a noisy street, and I wish I would have those noise canceling headphones, the remote audio ones. But they're expensive, right? I always wanted to get them, but it's like, okay, am I just gonna buy these headphones just for this reason? So I wanted a good overall headphone, and I tried all of them. I tried the Sony's, the MDRs, I think they're called. I tried the Shure's 40 something. I tried a lot of different studio headphones, open or close. But the ones that I like the most right now are the HD25s from Sennheiser. They're just light, you don't get headaches that often. They're not as flat as some of the other ones, so you can actually wear them all day and you're okay. I wish that they could isolate a little better sometimes when I'm in noisy location. The only thing I do, I just really press the cups against my ear super tight so I can actually listen what I'm doing. But actually, I just recently put a pair of speakers in my car so I could give my ears a little bit of a break.
I was watching some of your YouTube videos. You've got some great, like, behind the scenes, people setting up, things moving around. Are you getting a lot of good feedback from that?
The whole YouTube thing was kind of like unexpected. When I first started making videos for the YouTube channel, I was just making them to motivate myself, because that will actually make me create something to show people what I was doing. But it actually motivated me first to go actually attack the day, to get content and try to make something that my family, firstly, it will be interested in watching. And then I started making them more and more and more. And then I get all these messages and emails from people all over the world saying all these kind things. And it's just so nice, and that just kept me going. And it's nice. I have a solid follow up, and they're great. They're the best. Even when they're trying to be mean, they're nice. So it's great. I love those guys. They're great.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I've watched them, over I'd say the past year or so. Some of them you were hilarious when you were trying on different lav mics and talking about different techniques, but then you were talking about how hot it was and you were sweating and you kept changing clothes and you kept saying how it's so hot.
Yeah, I'm a goofball, man. You know, One thing that is always following me around my life is that I like to make people laugh, because you get the best out of people when they're happy. If somebody goes to work and they hate their workload, is like, what's the point, right? So for me, it's all about to create a nice environment, and we get things done. But if everybody's having a good time, even on the bad times, I think that's just great.
No, I agree. Yeah, I have a crew of people that we work together a lot, and that's the whole thing. We want to have fun. We're going to be professional, but we're going to have fun and have a good experience. And the same, too, is like we like a set where some directors are screaming at the talent. We hate that. You don't get a good performance out of the actor if you've yelled at them. And so we're always trying to be real positive as well. So I noticed a lot of the projects, you're a sound mixer, but you also still boom op as well. So how does like swinging the boom on a regular basis influence you when you're back as a sound mixer?
I think everybody that considers themselves a mixer should know at least how a boom up works and how to operate a boom pole. Uh, I'm not saying that mixers out there don't know how to boom, but some of them forget that sometimes you just can't get that close, man. No matter what you try, no matter all you experience, you just can't get that close. And some mixers, I think they forget about that how it is to be out there, you know. And I think it's helping me understand my boom up's needs. Because if my boom up is happy, I'm happy. The other way around too. If I'm happy, he's happy, right? So I think it's helped me understand that sometimes, even if it's a close up, we might be shooting at wide at the same time. And there's just no way he can get close. And I like to have monitors on my card so I know how the shots look like. Because some of the new boom ups they lie to you, and they don't understand that I know how to boom because I actually do it. So they be like, "No, I can't boom this, man. It's impossible." So if I have my monitors, I can actually look at them and be like, "Well, how about this? You want to try this?" I never actually tell them what to do. I just suggest things, because that's another thing. When you're booming or mixing, you need to understand that it's a teamwork, right? If you start micromanaging everything, you might as well just put on a harness and do it yourself. So you gotta trust your team, and at least that's what I've learned in my few years of experience over here. I'm always open to everything, and I always listen to my crew. If they want something or if they know something that I don't know, I don't try to act like, oh yeah, I'm the sound mixer, man. I know everything. That's just my position at the time.
Oh, that's good. When you're receiving video to your cart, do you do like a Teradek kind of a thing, or are you wired in?
I've been looking at. I didn't know how expensive those Teradeks were until I actually wanted to buy one. It's a lot of money. It's an investment. So right now I'm just running long BNC cables, and that's how I do it. I usually run the cable myself because sometimes some of the shows I do, there's only a two crew members, right? It's only the boom operator and myself. If we're lucky, we get a day call as a sound assist, but it's usually only a two team. And we have to double team. I have to go do it. I have to run my cable myself to village, and then from there I just run it, and then I just plug in my cart those the SDIs.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about some of the projects you've worked on. I saw you did the college dating app. You were sound mixer on that.
Oh yeah, that was a cool one actually. We shot it in 12 or 11 days, so it was insane. Those days we had like 10 or 11 page a days. They were crazy days, like long hours. Well, there's always 12 for those shows because they don't want to pay overtime. So at 12 hours, they just say, everybody go home. We'll finish tomorrow. That was a cool show because that was the first show that actually the editor, the sound editor, the dialogue editor, sent me an email. And he went like, this is the best sounding soundtrack out of a MOW that we ever received over here. We only shot it like 40 lines of ADR. And some of those lines were just by choice, not because they were quality, they were damaged or anything. So, and then he told me that the average ADR line count for ADR on each one of these shows is like 200 to 300 lines. So that was actually pretty nice. And I remember I called my boom up right away, like, yo, buddy, remember that time when you hated me because I made you do so many tweaks and fix so many things? Well, guess what? This guy liked our soundtrack. I get into a lot of fights with my boom up, but it's not because we don't know how to do the job. It's because he's all about diplomacy and set etiquette. I'm all about sound quality. And he'll be like, sometimes be like, no, we can't do that, man. They're setting up lighting. Give them some time. And I'll be like, yeah, but if you just bring it up right now so they don't forget, that'll be great, man. So it's all about that time, that fighting. We go back and forth all the time, but yeah, but he's the best. His name's Andy Liu. He might be listening because I told him to listen to this.
All right. There was another one you worked on called The Drive. It's a TV series.
Yeah, for that one, I did the season 2 for that one, and that was an independent film. It was funded by a TV company. One of my friends, he's the main reason why I started making all these MOW shows, And MOW just means movie of the week, like the Hallmarks, the Lifetimes, and all those TV shows. Before that, I was just doing like random corporate gigs or short films or super bad projects. But I was eager to learn, and I always wanted to, I was always go to the 100%. And I started booming for him on Hallmark shows. And then he got the opportunity to move on. So he said, "Hey, I'm moving out of this company. You wanna do these shows now yourself?" And I was like, "Sure." So that's how we started mixing, because this guy gave me the opportunity. And that show, he recommended me for that show. So the drive was interesting because if everybody knows that indie is always problematic, no matter what. Always something goes wrong. Especially when it comes to locations, some of them we don't even pay for them. We just steal the locations. So it was not hectic. It was a cool show, but I look back at it and people didn't actually care that much. They were just there because they wanted to get paid. So it's always rough when people don't care about their craft.
Now, when you're working with these groups, do you try to get a deposit up front, or how does it work when it comes to payment?
When it comes to payment, before I started doing these shows where we actually have payroll, I was doing invoicing. I was invoicing people. I was fairly new to the industry, so I didn't know what an invoice was. And they were all before that. I was always getting paid like on the day, or like people would send me an e-transfer because I was doing just basic like indie shows. So these guys actually told me to send them an invoice, and I was like freaking out because I don't know what an invoice is. I went to film school, man. I went to university, so I don't know what an invoice is. I barely finished high school. No, that's not true. My mom's gonna hate me if I say that. But yeah, so I was really green, so I didn't know how to invoice properly. They told me that I thought I was not gonna get paid, so it was a whole battle between myself and the director, because the director was producing and acting and everything. He was everything. Anyways, I like the guy. I'm good friends with him now, but at the beginning it was a little bit sketchy because I didn't know how the process was. To come back to that question about payments, we do everything to payroll now when we're shooting this TV show. So we do a star pack. We're filling our star pack with all our information, our scene numbers, and then on the day when we show up on set, we have daily timesheets and weekly timesheets, and that's how payroll knows how much we work and how much they should pay us. So we get a check on set like every 2 weeks.
Okay. Like when you show up, when it's call time, that's when it starts?
We get a call time. Let's say my call time. I'm on set tomorrow, right? So my call time tomorrow is 8 a.m. And I should. I'm on the. I'm right now. I'm currently shooting an independent feature film. It's called Broil. It's about vampires. It's kind of cool. I love indie because you are the boss. When you're in an indie show, if you tell them you have to stop because it's an issue, they stop for you. It's not like in these TV shows where we're always running against the clock, right? So I have a little bit more power in the indie world. Tomorrow my call time is at 8 a.m. Usually all the time we're late. So I show up on time and 2 hours go by and cast is not even there. And that's frustrating. But I like India because of that, because it's mayhem. Everybody does whatever they want. Nobody cares about protocol, and the people that care, they only care for the first 3 days, and then after that, they just do whatever. They just get it done, right? And I think that's how people are the most creative, honestly. If you don't follow all the rules, being safe, of course, but indie is cool. It doesn't pay as well, but it's a little bit more relaxed, and you do the cool stuff in the indie world. At least for me, I'm not there yet where I can do the cool project, the union shows. So I'm still independent. So the shows I do, they're all about Christmas thrillers. the mom psycho mother killing everybody in the neighborhood. So I do those kind of shows that your grandma might watch. Well, basically.
That's good. Yeah, we were over the holidays. We were visiting my parents, and my mom likes Hallmark Channel. And after like 3 days of Hallmark, I was about ready to kill myself.
I would much rather watch a Hallmark show than work on a Hallmark show, if that makes any sense. But I mean, no, that's not true. The main reason why I do location sound and why I stuck with it is because I love to be around people, and I love getting to know like 100 people every month and make all these good friends and relationships. And I like that. I like to talk to people, you know? So being able to do that and get paid for it, it's amazing. And I don't know if this is true. I haven't worked with that many sound mixers, and the only ones I work with are great. They're super awesome. So I've never encountered like angry people before. And that's a comment I get a lot when I'm on set mixing and there's a problem and I don't freak out about it. Because it's not in nobody's control to fix that. If it's like a plane or if by somebody a car goes by and people, why would you get mad at that? Like it makes no sense to me. So they always tell me that I'm super chill, and some people say that I don't even care about my job, and that's not true. I'm not gonna make it a bigger problem than it is, right?
That's a good attitude.
So I'm just like, if we didn't got it in this take, man, we get it in the next one. I think sometimes people forget we're making movies, right? It's just like nobody's. I was listening to one of your podcasts and somebody said we're not saving lives,
Yes.
and that's so true, man. Like when I heard that, I was like, that's so true, and I'm gonna start saying that from now on. So yeah, we're just having fun. We're making movies, so chill, man.
Yeah, good attitude. So you also have done some work as a Foley artist. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, I can. I wanted to be a Foley artist when I went to school. Okay, I gotta go back a few years here. You're ready? You're in for a treat right now. When I went to film school, I didn't actually want to go to film school. I didn't know what a film was before I went to film school. I used to watch movies, but I never thought people would actually get paid to make those things, you know? And my sister, she wants to be a director. And then she told me, you should go to school because I don't want to have a dummy brother. And I was like, okay, fine. And at that time, I was really into music. And ever since I was a little kid, I like music. And I built my first recording studio when I was like 8 years old. And I would charge people to record their songs. Awful songs, by the way. But I would charge them money to record songs. And this was back in Mexico, right? So everything was so ghetto. Like we were recording on like super cheap microphones, and we were going straight into the input of the microphone of the computer. No interface, no preamps. It was ghetto, man. So I had a huge passion about recording and making music, and I never actually got to go to school for it, and I always regretted that. So I actually wanted to go to school for that. But my sister, like, she hit me with reality, right? Like, you can't pay bills if you go to music school, you dumbass. So she said, how about film school? And I'm like, what am I going to be doing there? And then she goes, where's there sound for films? How about that? At that time, I was like 20. So I was just like, sure, fine. So she booked me an appointment, and I was working before that at a butcher place or a meat place, just killing animals for a living, and you pay well. So I was making good money, and I didn't want to sacrifice my comfort zone to go back to school and try something new. Right? I was happy where I was, but I'm so glad I actually listened to my sister and I went for it because I get paid to sit down and hit record. Man, it's awesome. Talking about the whole thing about getting paid to do something that I never thought and I never knew existed, like film. It was great. So I went to film school. I decided to go. I think it happened so fast. Like I was working on a Friday at the at the meat place, and then I got fired. I didn't got fired. I told them I was gonna go back to school, but they got angry at me. And in order to give me no benefits, they fired me or something. No, they make me sign. Anyways, something happened there. They got pissed because I wanted to go back to school. So I quit. No, I stopped working there, and then I started school on Monday. So here I was, a 20-year-old kid that doesn't even know what sound design means, in a class full of people that know exactly what they want and why they are there. So I freaked out. I was like, this is so complicated. What the heck is a MIDI controller? Like, I knew these things, but I never put names to it. So, and everybody started hitting me with all this terminology, and English is my second language, right? So it was hard for me because I learned listening to other things, other names, and then now it's completely different. And so I was freaking out at the beginning. But then I met the people that were my classmates, and they were really supportive, and they understood that I was just like trying to find a way. And then when Foley, back to Foley now, uh, when they showed me what Foley was, something just clicked, man. I get distracted super easily. And that's why I love set work, because I'm in somebody else's clock. So somebody else is running the show. I'm just there helping it sound better. So when I was introduced to Foley, I was actually being active. My hands were being useful, and I had to be creative to come up with different sounds. And I was like, I want to do this for a living. This is what I want to do. And I did it for a bit, but at the same time, it was not a lot of work for it, because in my city, there's only like 5 Foley artists that actually make their living out of it. So I had to sacrifice Foley for location sound. So maybe, I don't know, once I turn 60, I go back to it. When I can barely move, I go back to walking Foley. And Foley's great, man. I don't know if you guys, the people listening, know what Foley is, but I think they should know because they're in film. So
yeah, give us a kind of a little description of, say, like a typical day on a set or in the studio.
Well, if you work for a big studio, you will go to the studio, you will watch the film if you're lucky. If you're not lucky, you will just show up, you watch the film once, and you do different passes. The way I used to do it is I will do a pass of cloth. Cloth will be last, and cloth, it will help you glue people to the screen. Once you add those little rustly sounds when you walk, sometimes when we are just like living life like humans, because we're supposed to live, right? So we forget about all these little sounds. As a Foley artist, you have to think about the most ridiculous sound and recreate it in post to make that character come to life on the screen. So you have to give them the cloth rustling, the footsteps, the props, the touches, the spit, the hair. When somebody rubs their head around their head, you need to create all these little sounds again, because the microphones on set are focusing on the dialogue, and that's the only thing they should be worrying about. Sometimes we can catch a couple sound effects here and there, but ideally, we don't want to record the footsteps of the actor on set because we care about the dialogue, right? Dialogue is king. But in the other hand, in the post-production side of things, Foley, it needs to bring those elements back, because otherwise they will be floating on the screen. So once we add all of these different characters, like the shoes, like what type of shoe they're walking on, a hard sole, a sneaker, a high heel, they all sound different. And people forget, and they're not expecting these. But when they don't hear that, they think something's wrong, but they don't know why it's wrong, you know? So that's just basically what it is. We will watch the film, we will do a pass of footsteps, we will go by character, scene by scene, and then we'll just get it done like that. Footsteps first, then we go a patch of props, and props is basically every single item that a character interacts with, from a cup, from a pencil, a phone, backpack, everything that they touch, it's a prop and it needs to have a sound.
That's good. That's a good description. I like that. Now, you also have done some sound effects recordings.
Well, like I mentioned earlier, at the beginning, I was not sure what I wanted to do. Foley was my passion for sure, but there was not a lot of Foley gigs out there. So I had to get creative and I had to get busy. So I started recording things for one of my classmates. He ended up working for one of the biggest studios over here in Vancouver. It's called Sharp Sound Studios. They did a lot of the shows back in the day, and they still make some of the hallmarks and a few series in there. But some of the all the good stuff goes back to LA or New York. We might shut it in here, but you guys get all the cool stuff over there in the States, for post, that is. My classmate, his name's Hugh, and he was like a proficient sound editor. This guy's a maniac, man. I never seen anybody work like that. Every time I open Pro Tools, I just want to kill myself because Pro Tools is an easy software to learn, but to edit a film on Pro Tools for me is the worst thing ever. Because I know what's supposed to sound like, but I get distracted so easily. And because it's a computer, I know so many other things I could do in the computer that is going to be more entertaining. For example, watching YouTube videos. So I was always distracting myself, but this guy applied himself and he was so talented, right? So after school, he got hired to be a sound editor, and he started to working for some of the big shows, right? So all these shows that I ended up recording sound effects for. And he will be complaining about sound libraries not having the right sound. So I'll be like, well, I just bought a sound devices recorder. How about if I record some sounds for you? And that's how we did it for a couple of shows. And like I said, I'm always distracted, and he was always complaining about my sounds, but the source was good. The metadata might not be there, but the source was good. It was a good sound. So yeah, I never actually sold them. Like I said, I get distracted easily. That's why I love set, because once you finish your shift, that's it. You don't worry about anything else. I kind of want to get back to it because I don't want to be lazy, but sound effects recording is just, I like to be out in the thick of it, recording things. I never got to record the cool stuff like gunshots. Over here, we don't have guns in Canada for a good reason, maybe. But I never got to record any of the cool stuff. Like, yeah.
Now, I saw that on the IMDb, you were a sound effects recordist for the movie Dark, DARC.
That was with my friend, my classmate. He was the sound designer for that show, and he needed some sounds of body falls. So we actually went into the studio, and if you watch that film, every time some of these crazy Japanese Yakuza guys fall in the floor, it's me falling on a car or on the floor. So it's kind of funny. That movie is really dark, by the way. Like, it really follows the name. It's really dark. All the shows on IMDb that I'm a recordist, it was because my friend was the sound designer or the sound editor on it. So he gave me the chance to record some sounds for his shows.
All right. So let's shift gears a little bit. I noticed you work in a lot of cold conditions on set. I see snow on the ground all the time. Have you ever had any equipment issues with the cold?
No, I'm lucky that I live in Vancouver. It only snows like 2 days a year, so it's great. I like that kind of snow. My boom up, he's from Edmonton, so it snows there like really badly. So he tells me like I don't know anything about snow, and I should never comment about snow because I'm a privileged Vancouverite. And I'm like, first of all, I don't live in Vancouver. I live in Maple Ridge, which is a city close to Vancouver. And second of all, I'm not even Canadian, buddy. I'm Mexican. So that's what I'm trying to say here. So when coming about snow, I mean, snow is cool, man. I like snow. I never seen snow before, so snow for me is cool. I've never had a problem with cold. I have problems with rain. The snow is fine. The snow I even like. After the snow settles, the sound is so quiet that everything travels so far away. And you get the best sounding tracks when it's the snow settle, and it's just great. I had opportunity to record a short film which, by the way, I was not even ready for that show. They told me, hey, it's going to be in a mountain. Just bring a jacket. I show up. There's like 25 feet of snow around me. And I'm like, I was just driving on in my city and it's no snow at all. How come there's 25 feet of snow in here? That was a shock for me, knowing that just a few minutes, a few hours away from where I live, there's that much snow. And it was not just snow; it was ice, like hard ice. That's slippery, and if you fall in it, you're gonna get hurt. So you had to be really careful. And I was wearing sneakers, so I was not ready for that day.
Hmm. Now, no issues with batteries or anything like that when it's cold?
Mm, I've always backups for everything. So even when there's an issue, I kind of fix it because I have a backup of that same battery, right? The only problem I find with cold is that the transmitters, the receivers in my bag sometimes get so cold that they don't read the batteries no more. So you have like to warm the batteries a little bit with your hands before you put them in. But that just happens rarely. It doesn't happen that often. I remember one time when I was first getting into the whole Hallmark shows. Uh, I was doing an independent feature film, and when I say feature, I just mean feature length. It's not gonna be in any theaters. I rent a friend of mine was covering for me in that independent show, so she told me that the machine it froze. It was not turning on anymore. But I was not on set that time. I was on another set. I was booming for my friend Chris on another set on a Hallmark show. It was so frustrating that the machine that I love the most, the Sound Devices 633, is it froze, right? It's not working. And she calls me like freaking out, like, yo, your machine is not working. What's going on? So at the beginning, I was a little bit skeptical. I was like, are you sure it's on? Like, what's going on? You're lying to me right now, woman. And then she said, like, no, it's not working. And then the camera is not turning on either. We think it's salt in the water or the rain or something, and it's messing with the components inside of it. So I kind of freaked out because that's like a 4,000 recorder. That's the only time that my machine had a problem with, from the weather, that is. But it has never happened to me. Sound Devices is so solid. I don't think I have experienced any problems with it.
Well, what was your worst on-set experience?
It's going to be a long episode, buddy. I remember in the very first feature-length film that I did as a solo recordist and a boom operator at the same time, on the very first day, the very first setup, it was a huge dolly track. It was humongous. Before that, I was used to student films where they can't afford the good stuff. So it was like a couple feet and that's it, just to get some movement to the scene. So it was fine. I could handle that. But these guys, they went all in. I'm not kidding you, man. It was like about 30 feet. Even no, it was like 50 feet long dolly track. It was stupid long. And they were tracking the actors, right? So I decided, because I was super experienced at the time, that it would be a good idea to walk backwards. I was like, I'm gonna do it, man. That's fine. I mean, I'm just holding a 30-pound recorder that I'm booming too, so it should be fine. Well, that was my first mistake. I was walking backwards, tracking these people, and the first take was fine, right? But then the director didn't like the framing, so he cut it midway. So I was setting up back again to go back to the beginning of the take, and I didn't notice one of my cables actually got cut in one of the C-stands behind me, and I was running cable boom at that time because I was in the back, so there's no need for wireless, and I couldn't afford wireless back then either. So we go for take two. I start doing the same thing, walking backwards. And we get to the final position, and I was solid in place. I was getting good dialogue. And I look back at my machine, and I notice that my faders are down. And
Oh,
I'm only listening to one of the laughs that's not even in the scene.
oh no.
So I freaked out, right? I was like, oh crap, I gotta fix this. But I'm in a full extension fall. How am I gonna do this? So I locked my arm with my elbow with the boom. I'm sure everybody's done that one. And I hold it with one hand, right? And I look back and I start doing the adjustments with my mixer, and everything's fine. By the time I come back, my cable is fully tied against the C-stand, and then I did a step backwards, and my boom pole gets caught in the cable, so it pulls back, and it comes down hard on the main actor's head.
Oh no.
Yeah, buddy. So that's the worst day of my life. I remember feeling a hole in my stomach. Everybody stopped and looked at me like, you just killed somebody, you monster.
Mm.
What's wrong with you? And I felt so bad. And I remember I panicked. I couldn't move for like 30 seconds. And then the director comes back to me and he thinks there's something wrong with me because I can't move, right? And I'm like, I'm so sorry, man. I don't know what happened. And he looked at me. He goes, it's all good, man. Don't worry about it. Things happen, right? And I just couldn't shake that feeling of emptiness inside of me when that happened. I felt defeated. Like that's day one for there's gonna be 15 more days after this. And that's day one, scene one. Bam, you just dropped the boom pole on the main actor's head. And I just approached the guy right away and I was so apologetic, like, dude, I'm so sorry. I don't even know what to say to you right now. This has never ever happened to me. I don't think you care what I have to say right now. I'm so sorry.
Oh man.
He was cool though. He was cool, but the whole crew were just like, to this day, people bring that story back to me
Oh no.
when I see these people back on set. Remember that time when you hit that guy in the head? I'm like, yeah, I do remember that time, you bastard.
Oh
Yeah,
my
that
God.
was by far my worst experience. The one that is stuck the most, and I can think back on it, and I get that hole in my stomach. I'm so happy all my mistakes happen in the independent world, though, because I don't want to be the guy that drops the boom pole on, I don't know, something famous. you know, I don't want to be that guy. Well, the other ones is equipment failure. I sent. I had this panic. I couldn't sleep for about 3 or 4 months of my life because I thought my machine was gonna die on me one day. Because everybody told me that it will happen eventually, right? So I started thinking about it. Oh, my machine is gonna die one day. So what I did was I sent my sound devices back to service from Sound Devices, and I didn't have my 633 for about a month. And I borrowed a 664 from a friend of mine to do a day call for a Hallmark show. And I show up and I was trying the CL12. I was thinking about buying it, so I was renting that from a friend, and I was borrowing the 664. So I was fairly confident. And I think when you get the cocky, when you start getting cocky, that's when things go wrong, man. So I had the 664 plug on into the CL12. Half of the day goes by, piece of cake, right? I'm a pro. At this point, I'm like, nobody can touch me. Now, we come back after lunch and my machine froze. The 664 that I was borrowing from a friend froze. And that happened before with my 663 with the CL12, so I just had to unplug it and do a quick boot right on the recorder, do like a 10-second hold, and it will boot itself back to safety, right? So it was good. So I was thinking that's gonna happen. So I tried doing it and it didn't work. So at that time I was still calm. I was thinking straight still. So I tried to do it again. And I was like, maybe I'm doing something wrong. So I unplugged the CL12 from the recorder. I unplugged the power boost, because to use the CL12 with the 664 and the 633, you need to have a boost on it to power the CL12. So you can use them with those machines, because it's meant to be used with the 688. So I tried again to unplug the CL12 and quick boot the 664, but it didn't work. And I hear the 15-minute mark. Everybody goes like 15 minutes to rehearsal, and I'm like, okay, I got 15 minutes, man. I can fix this. There's no rush right now. So nothing is happening. Nothing is. I can't get the machine to turn on anymore. The screen froze on me, so I can't do it. So I keep trying everything, and I unplug all the batteries. I get everything out. I start calling people like, "Hey, have you experienced?" I call the guy who owns the machine, and he goes like, "Nah, that's never happened to me, man. You must be doing something wrong." And when I said that, I immediately look back when my friend told me that my machine is not working. I must be doing something wrong, and I felt like an idiot. I was like, things happen, and they go wrong sometimes. It's not all rainbows. So they do the rehearsal with no microphones, and I told them I have a technical. Give me a couple seconds. I'm gonna fix it real quick, right? And the director goes like, "Fine, I don't need the context right now. Just do the rehearsal and then get ready to record." I'm like freaking out at this point. Like, the thing is not working. I don't have a backup. I just sent my 683 to Sound Devices. I can get it back right now. I said, who should I call? I'm out of nowhere. We're shooting in remote locations most of the time, so I'm there's nowhere to get. And in Vancouver over here, we only have True Audio, and that's the only store that could rent you a Sound Devices. And they close at 6 anyways. And that was a Sunday, I think. So there was no way to call them. They don't open on Sundays. So I was freaking out. I couldn't move. The whole emptiness came back to me. I was sitting down in my chair, and I was like, I don't know how, but all of a sudden I feel empty again. And now I'm mixing. I'm not hitting anybody. I just don't know how to use this machine no more. And at this time, it was not long ago, actually. It was like a year ago. So I felt like garbage, because a machine was getting in my way of doing my job, and I don't have a backup. They said, okay, let's go to picture, and I'm freaking out because I can't get this thing to work. So what I did was I did a quick boot, and I reset everything. I couldn't do the quick boot because I didn't know how to do it in the 664. What I was doing wrong was, in the 664, if you go all the way to the left, that's internal battery. If you go in the middle, that's off. It has to be in the middle to work for the quick boot. If you're not in the middle, it won't work. So I was doing what I thought I was doing right with my 633. But so last minute, I remember I found that out, so I booted real quick. I plug everything back. I remember I unplugged every single cable in the machine, so I had to plug everything back. I was rushing. Time code was off, so I had to get my boom up to rush me the locket boxes, the slates, everything back. So he rushed me the slates. He rushed me and by this time, I never swear on set. I never get angry, and I never get emotional. This was the only time my boom up has ever seen me angry and frustrated. And he was freaking out too, because before that, I am the chillest dude. I never get angry. I never get frustrated. And he was freaking out because he didn't know how to do it. And his boss was freaking out. So hence he was freaking out. So he was just running around like a headless chicken. And I'm like, so we get it done. We start. I didn't hook the CL12 because I said, no, you broke my heart. CL12, no more. You dumb piece of equipment. I don't like you anymore. I said, the knobs it is, man. Knobs I know. We set everything back. As soon as they say raw sound, one of the actors, I don't know what he did, but I think they were in the wrong outfit. So they had to send them back. And it was just magical, because it gave me another 10 minutes to set up properly. I think he was in the wrong jacket or the wrong hat. So it was just perfect because now it was lying the problem was in another person, not me.
That's good.
And I think that was just somebody was looking out for me that day because I remember there was a point where I was just so in my head and I was like, what's the worst thing that could happen right now if I can't record when they tell me to record? A, they're gonna get angry at me. B, they might never ever hire me again.
Yeah.
So I was like, there's several other companies in the city. I can still work. I don't think these guys are taking over the whole Vancouver area. So I was just, yeah. I remember that when I hit that fella with the boom pole, uh, I was just thinking about, well, I'm pretty sure I could move somewhere and still work as a sound recordist. So at this point, I'm still fairly green when it comes to mixing because I only know my mixing. The problem with mixers is that you will never need two mixers at the same time. Sometimes you might have second unit days, but you're doing something else, right? There's never two mixers next to each other, at least not in the shows I've done. So I never get to see how they run things and how they do stuff. So for me, it was a learning curve that I had to do it myself. And that's been the toughest part. Uh, how to approach things. So all my experience have come from my boom ups because they've done the union shows, they've done all these big projects. So I will ask them like, hey, how did this guy run this thing, and how did this guy do that? And they'll be like, I don't know, man. I just hold the stick, man. It's been a really slow learning process, but I think it's been the best learning process because I have made so many mistakes that now I feel so thankful that the little stuff I know, I can teach somebody about it, and the mistakes I made, I know nobody else is gonna make them anymore.
That's good. Now
Yeah,
you said you had a third story. Is that another equipment failure as well?
I was doing a documentary for a. It was a singer guy. He was doing like a life thingy. He was just following his life. His kid had to learn how to feel his steps. His kid was also a singer, and these guys. They were not on their games. They just had money and they wanted to shoot a film. They didn't know anything about filmmaking or sound for that matter. So I show up the first day. I brought my boom operator, because after that day, when I hit that guy with the boom pole, I was like, no more solo gigs when it's a scripted show, because this is just ridiculous, man. And you just can't. I've never seen a cam up pulling focus, ever. So why should I do it? So after that day, I said, no more solo gigs for scripted gigs. So anyways, I bring my boom up. His name's Andy. And he tells me, oh, I've worked with these guys before. You're in for a treat, buddy. And I'm like, that's scary, because this guy will never talk bad about anybody. He's like the most diplomatic dude you ever meet. Some people might think he's not a human. He's just like a machine. He shows no emotion. And he told me that, and I was like, oh God, okay, wow. Right away they go, okay, I want you to laugh everybody. I want you to laugh the drums. I want you to laugh the bass. And I'm like, okay, well, first of all, I'm a location sound recordist. I don't know how to properly mic a drum kit or a bass. You told me we were doing a documentary, not recording music. He gets angry, first of all. And then he goes, just call the other guy who did it and ask him how. And I'm like, okay, well, if you give me his name, I might be able to call him and ask him for some tips, right? But other than that, good luck, buddy, because I don't know what the heck you want. If you don't tell me, how do you expect me to know what you want? So I'm cool, right? Even when people are screaming at me, I'm always chill. I used to work in so many other jobs where if you have no room for feelings, the moment you start feeling stuff, that's when you're out of the door, buddy. So I have a thick skin when it comes to that. And I was raised in Mexico City, man. So I can take some punishment. So, anyways, he goes like, I want you to laugh the drums, the bass, and everybody. So I'm like, what I can do for you is I could put microphones on all the players, and maybe if I feel like it, I could have an external recorder capturing the whole stereo music, but I can't put microphones on everybody. I just don't have enough equipment. You didn't tell me how to record music. He gets angry. He goes like, fine, do it. Just make sure we get sound. I'm like, okay. And then he asked me to set up the PA speakers, like the music speakers, so they can hear themselves. And I'm like, okay, sure, I can do that. Whatever, man. It's just a mixer. I'm sure I can figure it out. So I set the mixer up for the playback so the musicians can hear themselves. And then he asked me to get IEM systems so they can hear themselves when they sing. And I'm like, I have context. I could work something out. Sure, whatever. So I start setting all that up. I hated these guys from the very beginning. I was not having a good time. And now my whole philosophy is to have a good time. If you're not having a good time, you might as well go home. And I truly believe that if you're not having fun, just go home. And like, what's the point of wasting your time on something you don't love? For the money, there's so many other things you could do for money. But anyways, day one goes by, a pain in the ass. Day two comes around, and we're shooting in a bar. It's the big day performance, right? The actors are actually, before that they were rehearsing in a studio. Now they're actually performing for people. The guy tells me, okay, run the PA, and I want you to record individual tracks of all the instruments, and I want you to record also dialogue when we go backstage. And I'm like, do you want me to do everything at the same time? And then he goes, well, is that possible? Like, no, that's not possible. I mean, that's possible, but we'll need more people, buddy. And then he goes, okay, just call the other guy. Just ask him what he did. And I'm like, oh my God, dude. Okay. So at this time, we get a hold of the previous mixer. And sure enough, the mixer did exactly what I did, because as a film people, that's what we do. We mic people. So he told me, oh, yeah, I put the microphones on them, and that's all I did, man. Don't worry about it. He's crazy. And I'm like, okay, cool. We're recording the performance, and I didn't know. I was running my 633 was fully maxed out. 6 tracks. We had a boom. We had 5 wires. We have a boom. We had a stereo mic, and we have like, what's it called? 3 more wires on actors, on musicians. And I'm recording all of them at once, right? And I had another recorder doing a backup just to get the ambience of everything in case something happens, because I've never done this before. I'm not confident with this setup. Something might go wrong, right? Just to protect myself. The show goes for about 2 hours, so I just left my recording rolling for 2 hours. And then like an hour and a half, he goes, hey, can you come and record some interviews? And I'm like, I can't, because my recorder is actually recording the performance right now. Like, I only have one, man. You only have one camera, right? Your camera is not recording the whole thing. So I need another recorder. I can't record that. So he gets mad. He's being mad the whole show. I'm like, I just want to go home, man. Like, he's not even paying me that well. Mm. And then he goes, whatever it is you need, bring it. I'll pay for it. And I'm like, this is an opportunity. So I brought everything. So I brought 2 recorders. I bought lots of microphones. And he said he'll pay for it. He didn't ask how much. So it's really up to me at this point. So I went crazy on the bill, by the way. And he did pay, but he was not happy either. So anyways, we're recording, and then after he said that money is not an object, I changed my attitude, right? It's like, okay, man, you're paying me. I'm going to give you whatever else you want. Like, I'm here for you. At least you're man enough to realize that what you're asking me is not what you are paying me for. So, okay, get it. I get it. He's going the extra mile. He's going to actually pay for it. Cool. My attitude changes, and I try to fix my problems, right? The whole show goes for about 2 hours. The next day, I'm doing a backup. And I always like to do playbacks because, I don't know. I don't even know why I decided to do a playback at my house. I think I wanted to listen to the last song. Oh, that's right. This guy, he wanted me to, after the show, find the songs, chop them into single songs, and send them to him. So I'm like, I'm gonna charge you for that. And then he goes, yeah, no, money's not an object. That's when he started getting, money's not an object. I'll pay for it. I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm editing these files and I'm getting all the songs ready. And the last song, for some reason, my machine stopped recording at an hour. So my file, it was only an hour long because I think it reached the max, the 4 gigs max. But the problem was the machine didn't stop recording, or at least I didn't notice that it stopped recording, because I could guarantee that when I stopped that day, I pressed stop. But it might just be muscle memory that I pressed stop. But I don't know what happened. So my file was only an hour long. So I was missing an hour of the show. So I started looking along in my media. I'm like, maybe my SD card, maybe my SD card had it. And I was recording on both, on only my CF at that time. And my CF didn't have it, and I didn't have an SD card. So I was like, okay, so I guess we don't have it. So I remember that I had a backup recorder capturing, I had it right next to the speaker. So I was like, okay, maybe I could just grab that and he's not going to notice the quality change, right? But sadly for me, two guys decided to have a full yelling conversation right next to my recorder on the day of the perform. It was a bar. It was open for people, so they were just chatting, full on screaming. So my backup recorder was only recording these guys' conversation, which, by the way, was kind of incriminating because it's kind of crazy what they were saying. So I'm screwed, right? And then he sent me a text, buddy. The last song was beautiful. Can you please send it to me? And I'm like, oh shoot. So I was like, well, I don't know why it got corrupted. That's what I said, at least. My file got corrupted. I don't have the last song. And then he lost he just went crazy, man. Oh my God, Roberto, amateurs. And I'm like, dude, first of all, when I asked you what the project was, you told me it was a documentary. We're going to be following people. I was not ready for this, okay? And then he goes, there's no excuses. And I'm like, I remember that day. That's the first time one of my files ever got corrupted like that. And I don't know why that happened. But I think it was because he reached the max length that the sound devices can record. Because I was running all of them, all the tracks. So yeah, that was a bad one because I was always praising my sound devices, and then that happens. And that happened before the 664, so I was kind of like getting skeptical. And that's what made me send my recorder back to sound devices, because I thought there was something wrong with my machine. And then the whole 664 happened. And then, oh my God. Yeah, so.
Oh man, those are stressful situations.
Another quick one that happened is that I didn't know that if you don't arm the tracks on the sound devices 633, you don't record them. So if they're not armed, you're not actually recording those tracks.
Only to the mix track.
Only to the mix track, which is mono, and I'm trying to make the best out of it. So the editors didn't complain, so I guess they got it somehow. So that happened for a whole day. I didn't record one laugh.
Oh no.
And yeah, nobody said anything. And I have worked with those guys again, so I think it was okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. You send a mix to, I was doing a wireless hop to the camera, and it's like sometimes they'll just use the wireless hop, and it's like, guys, I've got ISO tracks here for you. And they're like, no, it's cool.
Oh yeah. A friend of mine, he's mainly a commercial guy. He told me that one time that happened, and they didn't even mix his mix. They just put it right next, like, there you go, buddy. Like exactly how he mixed it is how it sounded on YouTube. And he was like, it was like a big commercial for a big company. So he told me that the mix was actually panned. The left was the boom and the right was the laughs. And they didn't even center anything. They just, whatever he did, that's how that was the final product, basically. It was crazy.
That's funny. Let's see, I've got a technical question. Some of our listeners have written in and asked questions about setting up shark fin antennas and how you kind of do your RF distribution. Can you kind of give a little tip about that?
Well, it also depends on which kind of setups you're doing. What I've learned is that if if you're in a cart setup, I like to set up my shark fins. I like at the beginning I was doing the whole distance and I was actually measuring because they tell you on the websites and the JW Sound they tell you the exact measurement where the lengths the antennas have to be from each other. So I was doing that at the beginning, but it was getting in the way of people because I had to get them apart. So and then I work with a mixer. He's been doing that for like 30 years, and he had his main shark fin on the cart, and then he will remote the other one with a long cable, right? So I started trying that, and before I get my venue, I was using the PSC RF multi to get my shark fins to be able to remote my shark fins. I was just running a 50, like 100 feet of, it was a 50 footer BNC cable for antenna cable. So I was just remoting my antenna, getting it close to set, out of the way, getting nice RF, and I would just run the cable back to my cart. And I don't think I kind of understand the question when you say about setting it up. Like, what do you mean by
Well, I mean,
that?
just yeah, stuff like that is kind of I think helpful. People like some people they're used to working out of a bag, and then some people have like the small antenna they'll put on their bag, and then same with the cart. You know, when they first start using that, they just just had questions about setting it up and
Okay. Yeah, I started looking at pictures. That's how mainly I've been learning about this stuff because there's not always a setup group. I mean, there's the JW Sound, but I'm a sound guy, but I'm a visual guy. I like to see things, and I like reading, but I'm not a huge reader. I don't like to read blogs, and I know a lot of people are gonna hate on me because of that. I'm sorry, but I like to see things in action. That's just the way I learn. I like to touch things. I like to break things. Maybe not necessarily break things, but I like to touch things in order to learn. And I started looking at photos on Instagram of people with cards and shark fin antennas, and I will ask around with the mixers I know here, and they will be for them is all they already know this, right? So they don't want to go and tell you how they work because it's like so easy for them. They know this already, so it's like, how do you not know how to use this? You're a sound mixer. And I think I got into a lot of trouble because of that. Because I'm fairly young to be a sound mixer. I'm 27 now, but I started when I was 24. So I think at that time people would not be taking me seriously because it was like this guy just graduated school. He doesn't have that much experience, and I get that. To be a sound mixer, you need to have experience. But I was also not gonna say no to an opportunity, right? I'm not just out here trying to make a living, man. So the way I like to set up my things is I will look at somebody else's card and I'll be like, well, what does that do? What does that do? And what does that do? And I will look it up and I will do some research and then I find out how to use it. So the way I like to the main reason why I like shark fins is because it allows me to be far away from set. I like to be close to the action when I'm doing an independent film or where my boom ups are not as experienced because I need to be really active on set. If I have my main boom operator Andy, I would just like to be. If I could, I will be at home mixing. Not really, but that's an ongoing joke because I live really close from where the locations we shoot. So everybody will be like, "Hey, what time you wake up today?" And I'm like 5 minutes ago, and they have to travel for an hour to get there, right? So people will make fun of me because of that, because I live out in the boonies. So yeah, I like to be far away from set because I like the grips and all the electrics and people that are dealing with heavy equipment to have as much space as possible. And I'm so thankful because my boom up have teach me how to have set awareness. When I went to film school, the Vancouver Film School, we did student films and small short films, but there was never a set etiquette. They would tell you the basics, but they will never actually follow it. So once I started working on these MOWs, they had a little bit of a set awareness, and it's not a big show. It's not like a union show, but most of the people working there are union guys, and they have done it for like 30 years, so they know how things should go. And one thing I learned very quickly is that all guys like to complain about how the show is running.
Mm.
So every time you go to a set, they will be complaining like, "Oh, this location doesn't have a washroom. What's going on here?" And it will make sense for me, but I just hate people that complains. I am sorry. I'm like, what are you complaining about, man? You're getting a stupid amount of money to be here doing whatever the job you're doing on a film set, because people on film set, they get paid well. I still talk to all my buddies that work in the 9 to 5 jobs, and they're like, "How much money you make a day? What? That's insane, man. You must pay a lot of taxes." And that's true. We do pay a lot of taxes as well, but it's ridiculous the amount of money we get paid for what we do. And it's great. I'm not complaining, but if you think about the minimum wage, we are very good, man. Nobody should be complaining.
That's true. Hey, that brings up a good point. What's just a rough range of what a day rate or something for being a sound mixer or boom op on various projects?
Well, when it comes to money, it's always a tricky subject, right? In the whole YouTube videos thing, that's the question I get asked a lot. How much money you make? And at the beginning, I was fairly open about it, and I always told people. But then that also make people angry, because when I went to school, nobody told me, "Hey, you should charge this much and that much for this equipment." So at the beginning, like everybody was undercutting everyone, and I didn't know because before that I was working a 9 to 5, getting $100 a day. So for me, $200-300 a day was like great. So I didn't know I was undercutting everybody. So it took me a whole year. And that's the thing with this community, that I think people don't want to say numbers because they think you're going to undercut them, right? So they always tell you like a ridiculous amount of money, like I charge $3,000 a day. And be like, okay, well, who's going to pay that, man? Like, I don't know. I don't have those contacts. So I think you need to remember that you can only charge as much as the budget of the film, I think. Otherwise, films would not get made. Always somebody has to give. But if you want fair rates, you need to join a union. So they will be fighting for you. And a normal rate for a union mixer, I think, is like $50 an hour. Boom ups get like $35 to $40 an hour. That's Canadian, by the way. Sound assistants, they get like 35 to 30 an hour, depending on the show. Over here, we got IATSE and we have ACFC. So between those two, ACFC always gets the smaller budgets, and IATSE gets the big ones. It really depends on the show. Like I think that my favorite shows are commercials, because you do it 2-3 days, you get like, I don't know, $1,500, equipment and labor all included, Canadian prices, and then that's just one day, 10 hours, and you go home happy, right? At least I go home happy. So when it comes to money, like I said at the beginning, I was undercutting everybody, but my friends right away, the people that actually care about my well-being, they told me, "Yo, this is how much you'll be charging." And I started educating myself in knowing how much the equipment cost, because I got lucky at the beginning when I got my 633, because I bought my 633 like fairly soon after school. I started with a Zoom H6 and I did like 3 projects with it, and I was like, no, I hate this thing. There's no way. And I have huge respect for people doing it that way. There's nothing wrong about it. And if you do it, I salute you. But it was not for me, because I'm a lazy guy. So I don't want to be dealing with this thing. I want something that I'm just going to sit down, hit record, and it'll be great. I don't want to be fighting the equipment to get the job done.
Have you ever forgotten any gear when you were going to set?
I think that's just a given. Everybody forgets stuff. And if there's somebody listening that says that they never forget stuff, you haven't done this long enough, I think. The first thing that I forgot something was I was doing a reboot for the shoot for the film Critters. I was covering one of my friends' sound mixer in town, and he told me, "Yo, I gotta go to New York. There's a cool concert," and I'm like, "Okay, can you cover for me?" And I'm like, "Sure, buddy, I'll do it." So his main boom up was there, so everything should be fine. I just had to go, bring my equipment, hit record, everything should be fine. Make sure the levels are fine, and cool. So I show up. I one thing that I learned fairly quickly is that you do need to have like a checklist, because your brain play games on you. Your mind, especially my mind, play games with me every day. I show up to set and I start getting everything ready. I go get a coffee. I hit crafty like you should. I grab my coffee. I get a cookie over here. I'm a huge fan of Dad's cookies. So I grab a Dad's cookies. I'm drinking my coffee, right? And then the mixer comes back to me and he goes like, yo, the directors were at the Comtex. And I'm like, oh yeah, sorry, man. Because I was so used to my boom of just knowing where to grab my stuff. I'm sorry. I grab my Comtex. I give it to him. I'm about to set up my Comtech base station in my bag at that time. I was still using my bag in my cart. And I forgot that the night before I was actually cleaning my bag because I wanted these guys to be impressed by my cleanliness of my cart. And right away, the whole emptiness we talked about before came back to my stomach. And I almost puked on that one because this was a big show. Like there was like 50 plus people. They have puppeteers. It was huge, man. It's my first and only day, and I crapped a bed. That's not good. Luckily, I'm a spoiled kid, so I call my mother. She has no idea what this thing looks like. I show up super early that day. I think I was at 1 hour early that day because I really wanted to make a good impression with these people. I show up early. I don't have my Comtech transmitter. Everything is useless. Okay. So I start thinking all my options. I'm shooting the hell out of nowhere. True audio is super far away. My house is actually closer. I have this thing. I just forgot it. Okay, I'm gonna call my mom. She might be at home. I call my mother. I try not to freak out because if I call my mother freaking out, she freaks out, and then we can't get things done. I go, okay, listen to me, okay? I love you first of all and foremost. I love you. I forgot something. I need you to rush it to set. Right away, she goes, I don't want to drive in the highway. All these guys drive too fast. And I'm like, oh my God. Okay, Mom, I've never asked you for anything in life. I need you to rush this. And then she goes, fine, but you owe me. I'm like, okay, cool. Whatever you want, I'll get it. I told her, you gotta go downstairs. And then she starts complaining, I have to go downstairs. I'm like, oh my God. Mom, I'm kind of freaking out over here, okay? I don't want to sound panicking, but I'm kind of like panicking right now. I'm shaking. And then she goes, okay. And then she gets serious, right? My mom is also a jokester. So if we start having a conversation, she might not understand it's serious until I break it down to her. So I go downstairs. It should be right next to my computer. It's a black thing. It's a black box, and it says Comtech on it. And then she goes, okay. And then she goes downstairs. She grabs it, and then she grabs the wrong thing, right? And I was like, before I knew she was going to run the wrong thing. It's like I call her again. I was like, hey, once you find it, can you please take a picture of it? So I know you grabbed the right thing, so you don't have to drive back twice. And then she goes, oh yeah, that's smart. You're a smart boy. Okay, good. And then she takes the picture, and sure enough, she grabbed the box that said Comtech, not the actual Comtech.
Oh no.
So I'm like, okay, it's good. We can find it. And then she started getting mad at me because I don't know how to explain these things because it's not there. And I'm not believing her because that's the last time I saw it and it was there. And then she's like, whoa, you come and get it. And I'm like, okay, no, chill. I love you. Chill. I told her, okay, maybe it might be my drawer. And then she goes, okay. She opens the drawer and sure enough, there it was. I don't know how it got there, but it was inside of a drawer. And I'm like, I don't know how that thing got in there. Another thing that my mom is notorious of doing is she will grab stuff that I leave around the house and then she just put it anywhere she wants. So it's kind of my fault, really. But yeah, anyways, she drives that thing to set. I go grab it. I'm running at this point. There's a policy of no running on set. I was running because we were about to roll. We were like 10 minutes away. And I didn't know this crew works so fast because this is my first time with them. Usually, my shows, when they say we're about to roll, they're just kind of kidding. They're not even close. So these guys were on point, and I was freaking out. So I'm running. I hear people saying, where are you going? We're about to roll. And I'm like, wait a minute. So I'm just running for this thing. I grab the thing. I go like, God bless you. Thank you for being here. You're the best mother in the world. I go back running. Bah, 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 bah. I go back running to my station. I set the comtech on, and everything was good, right? Nobody knew that I didn't have my comtech other than my boom up. Ever since that day, every time I'm driving to a gig, I'm like, oh crap, I think I forgot something. But it's just the fear of forgetting something. So now I just pack everything double. So that way I'm never going to forget anything.
And you got your checklist.
I do, but I don't follow it anymore. I'm getting cocky again. So I got to get a reality check soon. I know I'm going to get one soon.
That's hilarious. If there's some people that listening that wanted to get into location sound, do you have any tips or recommendations that they should do?
I would highly recommend researching this stuff, first of all. I get asked on a daily basis, hey, do you need help on set? And I'm finding myself in the position where now I can hire people. Before I was the guy looking for work. Now work comes to me. And I say that with the most, I want to sound the most humble. I'm not feeling cocky in any way. I just feel that it's so funny that something that I wanted so bad, it actually is kind of happening. And it's just super nice to be able to get uh, people that I don't even know, sending me emails being like, "Hey, how's it going? I really want to get into location sound. You got any tips?" And I don't know when I became the person that people ask for advice for. I was always looking for advice. I'm still looking for advice, and now people want my opinion on things. So that's kind of crazy, and I'm extremely happy that people trust me with my knowledge and they follow it. So if you want to get into location sound, I will highly recommend researching this stuff. Learn what's a microphone, learn what's a preamp. I get so many people asking me to be on set, but they don't even know what an XLR is. Like, do a little bit of research before you actually ask people. And I know sometimes people don't know what to look for, and that I totally understand that. And if people approach me and be like, yeah, but I don't really know what exactly location sound is, I just really like it. So that's also fine. And you should start with that. Like, I have no idea what a microphone is, but I find this really interesting. Get any tips? What I would say is Google location sound. There's a lot of cool YouTube channels. We have Alan with the Sound Speed one. We have, what is the name of that fellow over there? Matt. We have Matt. We had a lot of new people making, and Matt is being a pioneer of the whole YouTube thing. Like, he actually inspired me to start my own thing. I learned how to use the Sound Devices 633 on his YouTube channel.
Yeah, is that Matt Price, right?
Yeah, Matt Price. So he's helped a lot of the indie community and people wanted to learn. So I will say check him out. I don't consider myself as an instructor in my YouTube channel. That's just like my thing. I like to showcase people what I do. And I try to do a few tutorials here and there, but I didn't start it because of that. It's becoming that more and more. And I think I'm going to start doing it more in the future so people can learn. But one thing new people forget is that people doing location sound are actually humans. They like to eat, they like to drink coffee, and they like to talk. So if you actually ask them to go have a coffee with you instead of just right away asking for a job, it goes a long way. And people that have been in the business for a few time, I think they might agree with this. that if you ask somebody on a date to just pick their brains instead of just asking for something right away, it really helps, and they might be even go the extra mile and teach you a little bit of it. Sometimes with this line of work, we don't have time. I rarely have time now, and I love it. I love to be busy, and I wish I had more time. I've lost a lot of friends and a lot of relationship because of this, but I think it's gonna pay off in a few years when I can just sit down and look at the empire I'm building. And I kind of want to work in cool projects, right? I don't want to get stuck in this whole TV shows, and I want to do cool stuff. So I'm always trying to improve. And whatever knowledge I know, you can always come to me and ask me, and I'll try to get back to you. But one thing you could do right now, right away, is just start looking for it. Approach your local scene. Google different microphones. Like, what does this do? What does that do? What's the difference between the preamps on this machine and the preamps of that machine? Don't get too caught up on the technicality of things, because the equipment is just that. It's just equipment. I'm thankful for having it, but when the equipment becomes your goal, you're losing the whole point. You're missing the whole image. So just use the equipment as it is. They're just tools. Don't think because you don't have the $7,000 recorder, you only have the Zoom, you can't do a good job.
Well, Rodolfo, as we kind of start to wrap things up, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Well, I'm in the YouTube thing, RLFO Sound, RLFO. It's basically my name, Rodolfo, but I got rid of a few letters. I don't even know why that is, but that stuck. And so you just reach out there. I'm also on Instagram, RLFO Sound, and YouTube. My email is Rodolfo, RODOLFO, at rlfo.co. Send me an email, and I'm going to try to get back to you.
All right. Well, I want to say thanks to Rodolfo Piedras for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me. It was fun. You're doing good things, man. You're doing good things.
I appreciate it. And a big thanks to all of our listeners out there. If you'd like us to discuss a particular topic, please send us an email at locationsoundpodcast@gmail.com. We would love for you to subscribe and leave us a comment. We're available on Apple Podcast, and for Android users, check out Google Podcast. Also, we're on Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, and on your favorite podcast app. Until next time, remember, sound is half the picture.